Hello. We are day to day in the markets. We started being pretty much very green in the day, and then all of a sudden we turned red. So, what happened? What caused this? This actually got initiated by Apple, which had a couple of news pieces that were relatively negative here, and this is why basically the market reversed today and we went negative, we went red. So we will examine in this video what happened, and even though Apple has been growing recently, there seem to be some concerns upcoming for what has been happening in the markets and what Apple has been announcing really. So let's take a little bit of a closer look at the news today. Of course, I can take a look at the stock news module here, and you will see that there are a lot of news pieces here talking about Apple got sued over antitrust violations here, and lawsuit basically being discussed quite a lot. And also, US stocks turned lower as Apple reportedly plans to slow hiring and spending amid economic uncertainty. So, two news pieces here. Let's take a little bit of a closer look. Now, Apple sued over antitrust violations for Apple Pay. What happened here is there was a class action lawsuit alleging that Apple denies access to Apple Pay mobile wallet technology. So, this kind of technology can be used to develop competing mobile wallet apps on iOS devices, and it looks like Apple may be monopolizing this, and this is why they got a lawsuit for this one. We'll see how that turns out to be, whether they are going to be paying some money for this. But I think the most important thing here and the most important news piece that I saw is this one, that US stocks turned lower as Apple reportedly plans to slow hiring and spending amid economic uncertainty. Now you will see here there are a couple of very interesting pieces of information here, and the first one is that Apple plans to slow hiring and spending next year in some businesses to prepare for a possible economic downturn. So they are proactively preparing and trying to cut down on spending pretty much because they are seeing that there could be a potential decline in the economy, or even worse, a potential recession here. Now that won't cover all the teams at Apple, as it's mentioned here, and they still look to be expanding and creating a product launch for iPhone next year. Now, what is interesting to see here, of course, we also want to be expecting to see some other earnings reports like Tesla, Netflix, and the likes. But it's interesting to notice these news pieces here. A key gauge of the US housing market showed signs of concern Monday as the National Association of Home Builders said builder confidence fell 12 points to 55 in July to pandemic era lows. And that is important. Confidence is very important. Like consumer confidence is an important metric that kind of can tell you where we're heading in terms of an economy. And we haven't had a crash really in the housing market yet. But it looks like if we continue at this path, it may be a possibility and it may be happening in the upcoming months. Another interesting thing to see, though, which is kind of not expected really, a note from Stifel's chief security equity strategist said to expect a strong rally in stocks this summer as the bear market could show signs of easing and the S&P could climb 9%. I don't know how much I believe that. It doesn't look to me like this is a possibility right now, but you never know what the markets could do. Now, I would expect this kind of action to happen if we had some sort of an injection in the economy, some sort of another stimulus, which will be terrible for the long run, but it will be positive for the short run. So if that happens, then I could expect some sort of an increase, or a temporary increase, I should say, in a strong rally maybe for a couple of months or three, maybe a little bit more even. But it would be a negative thing. Now, if that happens organically without the addition of any extra money here from the government, then that is a good sign for sure. That was interesting to notice here, and it's good to see. Now, we haven't had some of the commodities like crude oil and gold skyrocketing yet, which is interesting, and we're probably going to talk about this in separate videos. We have talked about copper in a video before. I will link to that at the end of this video. But what I wanted to take a little bit of a look at is I'm getting a little bit interested, and I want to use some of the new modules of the tool here just to examine what is happening with insiders and senators. Because we do know what kind of trades happen between insiders and senators really with this tool that we are having here. Remember, you can always join our tool by becoming a Patreon. You can find links in the description box below this video if you're interested. And you will see here that the insider trades of the last 3 months point to quite some sales here. Now, sales can be due to many reasons. I mean, sales could be just because officers here, for example, want to be getting some compensation back, and because they are seeing maybe the stock price go down, they may be selling a little bit more. And you can see that there are more sales of Apple lately than what they used to be 6 months ago. This is 6 months, this is 3 months. So more sales here, and some more things here, some more types of some more types of stock distribution here. There are a lot of different ways and reasons why some officer, for example, or employees could be getting stock. It could be restricted stock units, for example, used as part of the compensation. It could be options, for instance, that the company awards to employees. There are a lot of things, gifts and things of that sort. But what we mostly want to see is whether there is an abrupt amount of sales, I should say, or a large lot of purchases is even more important, is much more important, I should say, because people could be selling for tons of reasons, just because they want to make some money. After all, it's their compensation. But unless they are selling like everything that they have, and you can kind of see how many securities they own and how many securities were transacted, this is very little, and so you may be seeing the redness here. But in terms of amounts, these are very small amounts, and they are not worrying at all. If you saw much higher amounts, then it would be much more worrying, of course. But overall, this looks fair. And if you take a look at the absolute numbers, this is 7 sales in comparison to 18 over here. So actually, in absolute numbers, these are less sales here. It's just that we had even less in terms of awards, gifts, and other kinds of distributions here. So that's interesting to see. It doesn't seem worrying at all to me. Now, the senator trades is another very interesting one, because we actually have access. The senators have to file within a specific amount of days how many shares. They must give a range, really. They don't have to tell the exact amount of shares that they're buying, but they must give a range of how much money they are spending, for example. And so you will see here that Apple actually had about 12 purchases in the last 6 months. And in the last 3 months, purchases have slowed down 4 in terms of senators. But it's interesting to see that of these 4, Nancy Pelosi has actually bought some back in May 24, May 13 over here. And you will see these are large lots, $1 million, like $500,000 to $1 million. I guess, again, remember, this is a range. We can actually click here and view the whole thing, the whole form here. You can see the disclosure here exactly as it was filed for Apple, 500,000 to 1 million, for example. And we have the very interesting view here, and convenient and quick to see. And you will see also that back in January 2021, she bought 1 million to 5 million. That's a very large trade. And she filed this after 38 days. So she published it at the end of February, and she actually transacted at January 21st. Interesting, that was a little bit late, but still within limits, I believe. I believe it's 40 days, if I'm not mistaken, which is the limit. Now, this is interesting to see. You do see some more activity here, but Nancy Pelosi is one that I would definitely be looking at, and she seems to be bullish on Apple here. Very interesting to notice. Okay, so it's interesting to see that just for the sake of it, how many splits Apple had. Look at this, like Apple, if you go back to 1987, has had quite a few splits here, and continues to be having splits, and all of these basically mean that the stock price was much higher at some point and then became lower, just to accommodate more people buying the stock at a cheaper price, really making it a little bit more psychologically available for people. Very interesting to see. And in terms of the metrics of Apple, I guess we have talked about these for quite some time. And I have made quite a few videos talking about it. It's a stock that is relatively expensive. And we have examined the financials. It's not super expensive, but it's still more expensive than I would like to get it at. It has to actually fall quite some. And how much? We can take a little bit of a quick look at the stock valuation tool, and use a revenue growth that is somewhere in between these values here. Now, last year was a fantastic year, but overall they have had worse years. So we could go somewhere in between and try some different scenarios. Let's just go 5, 10, and 15 and see what we're getting out of these separate scenarios here. In terms of net income margins, they are about the same every year, which is nice to see. We're gonna go 21, 23, and 25 here, in between basically what they have been doing. And the free cash flow margin, again, about the same. Again, fantastic to see. I love to see that. 100, 105, and 110, and 13% for our annual return here will give us this kind of values here. It is only our high one that is within our limits of our current price here. And the medium ones are sitting at about 110 with a revenue growth of 10% a year, which I think is fair and very achievable, and a net income margin which is also very achievable. In fact, it has been very, very close to the average, so the 3-year average and the 5-year average, actually less than last year's net income margins. They may be suppressed a little bit, especially if we have a recession, so going with 21 or 23 would make a lot of sense. Now, what we're having here in terms of Apple, of course, this is a fantastic company, great margins, it's a powerhouse, having amazing tons of cash, really, producing tons of free cash flow. So I would be willing to pay, definitely be willing to pay my medium range here and my medium valuation, even a little bit more, frankly. So if it went maybe 115, 120, this could potentially be a buy price for Apple for me. And yeah, you may be paying a little bit more, but again, remember that not every company is the same. You are not going to be paying the same for Walmart and the same for a company like Apple, for example. These are very, very different things. Have very, very different margins, for example, different companies, and it makes much more sense to pay a little bit more for Apple. You don't want to overdo it, but because of the business, it does make sense to pay a little bit more potentially. So this is what I wanted to talk about in terms of Apple, a stock that is being discussed quite a lot today and actually caused the reversal in the markets. And you can also see it in our trends module here. Take a look at these trends, how much they have been increasing. They have skyrocketed. Look at these posts, comments, likes, impressions. Everything has skyrocketed today in comparison to yesterday in terms of Apple. Being discussed a lot both in stock tweets and Twitter. Again, stock tweets is probably the most important one because it's live. But I mean, it's being updated live, and there are messages all the time from people interacting. Twitter is a little bit more about pretty much posts about news and things of that sort. And so yeah, Apple is interesting, and it's interesting what they told us about their upcoming declines in terms of their employee count potentially, or maybe their hiring, I should say. I don't know if they're going to lay off some employees as well. But it was very, very important to know what they're doing and why the market actually went down today, what was the reasoning behind this. And of course, we're going to be keeping in touch with Apple, seeing what they have upcoming for us in the next few months or so. So thank you for watching this video, and remember to like if you did enjoy this video and if it helped you a little bit. And also become a subscriber if you are not one already, which you should have been. I mean, yeah. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon, guys. Bye-bye.